Hi, good morning to everyone. Welcome to Desktop Central training program. So today's training is about patch management. I want to thank everyone for joining the webinar in your busy schedule. Before we proceed further, please comment in the chat section to know if you are able to view my presentation and also hear my voice. Let's wait till we get a confirmation from few folks. Thank you all for your confirmation. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sriram and I'm associated with Desktop Central for past 10 years. As you are aware, we are going to see how patch management works when it comes to Desktop Central. So before we step into our objective and the things which we're going to see, we're going to find more information on what is Desktop Central exactly. Desktop Central is a unified endpoint management solution that helps in managing servers, laptops, desktops, and smartphones. And you can manage all of these things from a central location. Also, you can automate your regular desktop management routines from a central location. To know more information about Desktop Central, you can very well visit the below mentioned link. Let's have a look at the overview of our training schedule. So as you can see, we've completed the first patch module session by today morning, 6:30 GMT, and now we are in 11:30 EST time. We also have software deployment, which is going to happen by next week, which is on 6th February. You can also register for this webinar in the below mentioned website. And all these sessions will be recorded and it will be available in the below mentioned website too. And all the registered participants will receive the recorded training video via an email as well. Before we start the training, I want to share with you the agenda for the day. So let's see what is patch management in overview and how it works, followed by the architecture. From my support experience, I'll be sharing 4 scenarios which would comprehensively cover the entire patch automation process and its components. We'll also see how to test and deploy the patches to the test and production environment. Deploying patches manually to multiple sites every month will be a tedious job for an administrator. Let's see how to overcome the situation using automated patch deployment. There might be some difficult situations where you need to install the critical patches immediately to the production environment. For an example, 0-day critical patches. We will see how to achieve this using the patch deployment technique. And for a better understanding, let me share with you some of the interesting scenarios which I came across while interacting with the customers. And at last, conclusion of the session with most frequently asked questions with answers. During the training session, if you come across any questions, feel free to use the chat option to chat with our expert team. We will collect all the questions raised during the session and they'll also be published for a larger audience view. Supported operating system. Desktop Central supports patches for all 3 flavors of operating system, Windows, Mac, and Linux. When it comes to Windows, we support all major operating systems starting from Windows XP till Windows 10. And when it comes to Linux, we support all major operating systems. And I'm glad to let you know that we have also released support for SUSE recently. So once you have moved or have upgraded to the latest build, you'll be able to access SUSE operating system using Desktop Central. We offer support for 1,000+ applications in Desktop Central and more than 350+ third-party applications are supported in Desktop Central, which is a huge list. So here comes the Desktop Central architecture. When it comes to the Desktop Central architecture, as you all are aware, Desktop Central is an on-premise solution. So where Desktop Central server can be installed in your local network or DMZ. I presume everybody knows about DMZ. It is where you can place your server in secured hosting so that the client machine can reach the server in a secure way. Using Desktop Central, you can manage machines in LAN and WAN network. When you push a patch to the machines in LAN, those machines will download the patches from the desktop central server directly. Whereas when you manage machines in WAN, you can utilize the distribution server feature to deploy the patches to the machines which are available in WAN. So what is exactly going to happen here? For an example, let's see how a distribution server is going to help you out when it comes to managing bandwidth. For an example, if you have more concerns about bandwidth, and if you are managing around 20 to 30 machines or more than 20 machines in a remote site, you can very well use the distribution server. So when a patch task is created, the machines which are located in the remote office will not reach the main server to download the patches. Only the distribution server will reach the desktop central server, and it downloads the patches and distributes to the machine which are available in the remote office. So this feature will help you to manage the bandwidth more efficiently. Also, users on the go, like roaming users who move from one location to another, even they can be managed efficiently using Desktop Central. To achieve this, if you are managing Desktop Central server in LAN or in DMZ, you can enable a NAT in firewall, or you can utilize the forwarding server feature, which will help to communicate the agent securely. You might wonder, what is a forwarding server? Forwarding server is nothing but if you wish to manage the roaming users securely, then you can utilize the forwarding server feature. So this acts as a secured gateway server between the roaming agent and the desktop central server. Any communication from the roaming agent to the desktop central server will be routed through the forwarding server. Hope you guys are clear till what you've completed. If you guys have any questions, please do use the chat option to chat with our expert team. So let's get to the important part, which is agent installation. As you all know, Desktop Central is an on-premise solution where once the server is installed, agents should be pushed to all the machines in order to manage those machines with Desktop Central. So let's see how to install the agents in the client machine. Agents should be installed to manage the client machines in Desktop Central, which is a mandatory thing. An agent installation can be done in more easy way from the console itself. For example, from the console, it can just go to the scope of management and it can add the domain credentials and it can push the agents to the client machine. While pushing the agent from the console, I would request you to kindly ensure that Desktop Central server have access to the admin dollar of the client computer. If this access was not given, then from the server machine, you cannot install or you cannot push the agent to the client computers. And you can also deploy agents using Windows GPO or a startup script. If you're using Active Directory in Windows Network, you should be able to leverage that by deploying agents using group policy. Or the last option, you can very simply download the agent manually and you can install it in the client machine. So these ways you can very well install the agents to the client machine. And when it comes to Desktop Central, we can manage desktop, laptop, POC devices, and you can also manage servers using Desktop Central. So here comes the 90 minutes refresh policy. What is 90 minutes refresh policy? How it's going to help you out in managing your CPU performance as well as the bandwidth. Desktop Central architecture is scalable to manage different network and even larger networks up to 20,000 machines. This is possible because of the refresh policy we use. Let me explicit this in simple terms. Desktop Central agent would be contacting the server at every 90 minutes. This is called as agent refresh cycle. This feature ensures that all computers in the network contact the server periodically. Two important factors are ensured here. Network is not choked by the agent communication, meaning bandwidth is not disturbed due to the agent-server communication, and the performance of the server is not affected at any time. Desktop Central Server has an intelligence to endure systematic, streamlined communication from all agents at the regular intervals. For an example, in a network of 90 computers, for each minute, one computer will reach out the Desktop Central Server. And for 900 computers, for a minute, 10 computers will reach the server. And for a larger network, like 9,000 machines, 100 machines will reach the Desktop Central Server. Using this feature, we ensure a hassle-free communication from agent to server. So here comes the components which are involved when it comes to Desktop Central. As of now, you guys should be aware like what are the essential and optional components. As you can see, server, agent, and notification server are essential components, whereas distribution server, forwarding server, failover server, and language pack are optional server components. So you might wonder, what is a failover server and what that's going to do? Let me concise about failover server. Failover server brings in an additional server which actively monitors the primary server and takes over the operation when primary server fails. So this feature helps you in eliminating the downtime in your business environment. Ports used by Desktop Central. We would recommend you to open the ports shown here to manage specific features with Desktop Central. Agent-server communication happens in port 8020, and server-to-agent notification happens in port 8027 TCP. For an example, voice and video chat. One of the features associated with the product works in UDP 8443. If it is a Windows firewall blocks the ports, we will notify you in the home screen, and that will be added as an exception. Agent and server communication happens securely on port 8383. What happens if this port is blocked on the server machine? Any patch or software deployment task you push from the server will not get completed. To know more information about the ports, please visit the below mentioned website, which is www.desktopcentral.com/ports. Azure and AWS. There might be multiple scenarios why you wish to install the server in cloud. If you manage more roaming users, having the server in cloud will be an advantage. So in this scenario, you can place the Desktop Central in AWS or Azure. Cost-effective solution. So if you are placing the device in cloud, you can avoid the hardware infrastructure and maintenance costs for infrastructure. If you have a distribution server for cloud in your network, which will contact the AWS or Azure instance, and your clients can be managed. You can also manage roaming users via your distribution server. If you host your application servers on cloud, they can be managed directly from Azure or AWS network. Daisy will be on cloud soon, where it can comprehensively manage all of these above mentioned features effectively. By now, we have released cloud for another ManageEngine product, which is Patch Manager Plus. So here comes the Microsoft Update approach. So I'm going to provide more information on how Microsoft suggests their customers to deploy the patches. So what we exactly do when it comes to Desktop Central is we adapt the same information and we provide multiple options to make the deployment more easier in your environment. When it comes to Microsoft, every month, second Tuesday will be considered as Patch Tuesday. During this time, a lot of patches will be released. Based on the use cases, a lot of customers had issues on which updates are required for the client machines. Based on the operating system, I'm going to give a brief note on which update is mostly required for Windows 7, 8, and Windows 10. When it comes to Windows 7 and Windows 8, These are the major updates which are required. Security only update. An update that has all the new security updates given for a month. Security monthly quality rollup. They include both security and reliability updates that are packaged together. The monthly rollup addresses new security issues and will proactively include updates that were released in past. Delta, cumulative, and feature pack. These are the major updates required for Windows 10 environment. Delta, an update that has all the new security updates for a given month. Cumulative, they include both security and reliability updates that are packaged together. The cumulative update addresses new security issues and will proactively include updates that were released in the past. Feature pack. As you all know, feature pack will be released twice per year with the new capabilities. Like for 18 months, a feature pack will be active and it will be implemented in the environment. As you all know, Windows 10 1809 is the current feature pack which has been managed by the users. We have also got an easy way to deploy the Windows feature pack 1809 to the environment. We have made a lot of changes when it comes to the ultimate patch deployment as well as the deployment policy. I'm going to give more information about that feature in the coming slides. So Microsoft suggests their customers to test the patches in the pilot environment before deploying it to the production environment. So without testing the patches, if you're going to deploy the patches to the production environment, there might be a lot of situations where that specific patch might cause some issues to the environment. So to avoid that, it's better you can deploy, you can create a test environment, deploy the patches to the test environment first, and then you can push those patches to the production environment. We'll also see how this can be achieved using Desktop Central. Full patch approach. So how this exactly works, most of the customers, when they reach Desktop Central support, they used to raise a complaint that the machines are not fully patched. It again depends on what type of updates you wish to deploy in your environment, how you choose your targets, how you choose or create the task. So that's the main thing when it comes to the full patch approach. I'll also guide you how to create a proper ultimate patch deployment task where all your client machines can be patched and where we can make it more secure. Patch management architecture. So when a patch is released by the vendor, it will be available in the site where our patch crawler team on a daily basis repeatedly probes the internet to draw vulnerability patch information from the vendor site. Once the download is completed, the patches will be tested in our environment. So this is a basic testing which involves whether the patches can be successfully installed, compatibility check for that, and the applicability of the patches will be tested during this process. Then it will be published to the central patch repository. The Desktop Central server subscribes to the central patch repository periodically to download the vulnerability database. Once this process is done, the client machine should be scanned to identify the missing patches. After identifying the missing patches, Desktop Central server directly downloads the required patches from the vendor site. So this is how the patch management architecture works. If you guys have any questions related to what we've completed, please use the chat option to chat with our expert team. Let's move on to the next topic, objective. To explain the patch module in a better way, I've taken an objective, which is setting up patch management. So here are the enterprise level best practices for setting up patch management. We will see how to scan the machine and test patches in non-production environment. Once the testing is done, let's see how to approve the tested patches. After approval, we can see how to deploy the patches to the production environment. To make the deployment easier, let's have a look on how to create automate patch deployment task, and we will see how to deploy the patches on a periodic basis. At last, we'll have a look at creating reports. Understanding patch management. To explain the objective in a better manner, based on Microsoft's suggestion, I've taken a live example here. John, one of our loyal customers who is managing hotels in multiple locations, are managing over 15,000 computers in his network, which is spread across the globe, where he manages multiple remote offices in different locations, as you can see, New York, London, Chicago. By now, his requirement is to test and deploy the patches which are released by last month to all his hotels on a periodic basis. Once the deployment is done, John should share the report to Peter, who is his IT manager. So let's see how John and team achieve this objective using Desktop Central. For that, I'm going to log into the Desktop Central console as John. So I've logged in as John, who is the administrator for this account. So once I've logged in, my first objective here is to set the proxy settings. So I can set the proxy settings under admin and then patch settings, proxy settings. The main reason for configuring the proxy server is Desktop Central should contact the central patch repository to update the vulnerability database, as well as to download the patches from the vendor site. Proxy should be enabled. Also, kindly confirm that patchdb.manageengine.com is open to download the vulnerability database. As you can see, here it throws an error stating that access to vendor websites to download missing patches failed. Whenever there is an error, 90% of time, we will add up a read KB tool. So where once you click on that error message, it gives you a clear information why the failure was happening. So based on that, you can follow the troubleshooting steps and you can fix the problem. If the issue is not getting resolved, please do reach our support and we'll be happy to assist you. So you'll find 4 options over here to configure the proxy. So you can either use a direct communication. So if you don't have a username and password, you can very well go with the direct connection. Or if you wish to configure it manually, you can very well put up the user credentials, and through that, the patches will be downloaded from the vendor side. And the next important step here is patch database settings. Under patch database settings, you can choose a specific type of patches which you wish to manage, like operating system related patches or third-party patches. All the computers will be scanned to identify the missing patches based on the selection. For example, if you're managing WSUS and you wish to install only third-party patches through Desktop Central, in this case, you can only choose to install patches related to third-party patches. However, based on my support experience, most of the customers will use all the options to ensure that the entire network is patched through Desktop Central and gain a single point of management. As you can see, we have added multiple new features here under patch database settings, where you can very well choose what type of updates you wish to manage. For example, if you're managing only Microsoft updates, so what type of updates you need? Only security updates to be managed in my environment. So if you choose only security updates, under missing patches view, it displays only the security patches which are required for your environment. So based on this, you can very well manage your entire patching process. And the next important thing when it comes to Desktop Central management is the agent installation. So under admin, scope of management, computers, add computers. Here you can add the domain credentials. So that's the first step in order to install the agent. So you can click on add domain and you can enter the credentials. As you all aware, Desktop Central is capable of managing mixed network, both Active Directory as well as workgroup. So you can enter the credentials over here. Once you've added the credentials, you can go back to the same admin scope of management, or you can also use this quick launch option to go back to the computers page. Here you can very simply click on add computers and you can choose the machine and you can push the agents to the client machine. What exactly happens when you push an agent from the server? We remotely connect to the machine and copy the installables once it is done, and it will remotely invoke the agent installation. So once the agent installation is done, you'll be able to find those details over here. So where it gives you an information whether the agent installation is successful or if there's going to be any error in installing an agent, those details will be updated here under remarks. As you can see, the network path was not found. You'll find a read KB here. You can just click on that. It gives you a step-by-step process what needs to be done in order to fix this issue. As we've told earlier, please check the admin dollar access from server to client machine, as well as please check whether there is a firewall block which is stopping the agent installation. So after following these steps, definitely the issue should get resolved. But still you're experiencing the problem, please do reach our chat support, or you can reach your support directly. We'll definitely help you to fix the problem. So once the agent installation is done, the next step, the next important step here is to scan all the machines to identify the missing patches. That's the first and foremost thing which we'll be doing here. So how to do or how to initiate a scan from here? So that can be done here under agent settings. So you'll find an option, actions to be performed after agent installation. So if you've chosen this option, once the agent is successfully installed, a patch scan, inventory scan will be run on that machine, and the data will be posted back to the server. You'll also find the agent tray icon. So this will help you in managing your client machines in a more effective way. For an example, during the deployment, if you don't want the users to get disturbed with the deployment message or any notification, you can very well uncheck this option. So during the deployment, scanning, and any inventory scan, the user will not be notified and it's going to be a silent process. I've also seen few customers used to have this doubt, like whether the client machine requires an internet connection. No, the client machine does not require an internet connection. It just needs reachability to the server. It can be anywhere, but it needs a proper access to the server. If it is reachable to the server, then the patches or any task you push from the server or the console will reach the client machine. So moving on to the next part, which is patch management dashboard. So under patch management dashboard, we have made a lot of changes. So the changes what we have made here is we have added the network status, and you can find the details of how many machines are highly vulnerable, how many machines are healthy, what's the status of the missing patches, what is the latest security news. All those information can be viewed from here. If you wish to know how many patches are not approved, how many patches requires a reboot, all those information can be gathered from here. We're also working on improvising the entire dashboard features. So where in future, you'll be getting an option where you can customize your own dashboard. Once those features are released, we'll also update you through newsletters and forums. So moving back to the agent installation part, as you can see, the remote offices part, which is available here. So as you all know how a remote office works and what is the need of a remote office. So once you click on add remote office, you can find two options. One is through distribution server or direct communication. So how this is going to help you. When it comes to a distribution server, as you all know how the distribution server works, so if you're going to manage more than 30 or 20 machines in your environment, you can very well use a distribution server, which will help you in managing your bandwidth more efficiently. And if you're going to manage less number of machines in a remote site, you can very well use direct communication, where all the client machines can reach the server directly and they can download the patches. One of the important things we should notice here is the replication policy. So here is where we're going to set by when the distribution server should reach the desktop central server in order to download the patches. As you all know, whenever a task is initiated, whenever a patch deployment task is initiated, your distribution server will reach the main server, it will download the patches, and it will be shared to the WAN environment. So here you can set up by when this synchronization should happen, by which data transfer rate it should happen, and you can put up the replication interval, like how frequently, every 2 minutes you want this to happen, or a weekend, or weekdays, or between specific time. You can update all these information here. So once this part is done, so once the replication part is done, you can also install the agent using a distribution server itself. So once you have added the remote office through a distribution server, you can very well install the agents to the client machine. So moving back to the previous screen, you'll also find the SOM policy option over here. Whenever a new machine is added to your domain, you don't need to choose those machines, install the agents manually. When it comes to an administrator managing more than 300 or 500 machines, installing agents on a daily basis, it's not an advisable, and definitely the administrator won't have enough time to do this. In order to avoid this, you can very well use the automate agent installation option. So whenever a new machine is added to your domain, we'll initiate a sync, we'll identify those machines, and we will install the agent. So in this way, you can manage the newly added machines to your domain in a more effective way. And if a machine is not reaching the server for a very long time, it can also put up a time frame, and those agents can be removed, and you can utilize it for the future purpose. So you don't need to purchase additional license for the machines which you're not using. So if you guys have any questions till what we have completed, please use the chat option to chat with our expert team. So let's get into our next objective, which is scanning computers. I'm going to give you more information on how Desktop Central is more automated than any other products. So when it comes to the scanning process, we do have an automated process available, but I'll also show you how to do it manually over here. So under Systems, I have an option called Scan Systems, where you can just go here, you can choose the machine, and you can click on Scan System. So what will happen when you initiate a scan? So by this time, automatically a notification will be triggered from the server machine, and client will pick up the task, and it will execute that, and it will share the missing patches details to the server. So in this way, server will get to know what are all the patches required for the client environment. We have automated this entire process. I'll tell you how it exactly works in the coming slides. So once the scanning process is done, you'll find a scan status remarks, which will be updated over here. If you have any issues in the scanning process, those details will be updated here, where using up this option, you can very well troubleshoot and you can fix the issue. Once the scanning part is done, you can find the missing patch details under the missing patches view. So you can very simply go ahead and choose those patches and click on install patch. So where it automatically choose the target machine, where you don't need to worry about the target selection. The only thing you need to do is just click on deploy immediately to push the patches. I'm not going to do that because that is not my objective. My objective is first to test the patches in my test environment. For that, I'm going to take you to the test and approve. So based on my objective, I've configured proxy patch database settings, I've scanned machines, and then I've identified the missing patches. So my next objective is to create a test group and test the patches to the environment, the pilot environment. So here under test and approve, I can very well click on add group, and you can find all three platforms available here. You can choose one based on your requirement. Few might have a question, why customers, or why you should actually test the patches in the environment. Imagine if you have a banking application installed in your production environment. Installing the patches to the production environment without testing might create issues like BSOD, or unexpectedly it can corrupt the banking application. Sometimes it can even reboot the machines. So this will be a very big downtime for your business. To overcome this and to secure the network, you can utilize the test and approve feature. Even Microsoft suggests the same thing when it comes to deploying the patches. So here we need to choose the custom group where we're going to deploy the patches. So what is a custom group? How this is going to help you out over here? Custom group is a unique feature in Desktop Central, which helps you to create a group for specific users and computers. So this group will help you to define the specific group of machines or users at the time of any frequent patch deployment or other requirements in Desktop Central. So if you've created a custom group over here, you can use the same custom group under reports. You can just choose that group and you can get information of how many patches have been deployed, how many missing patches for the specific group. All those information can be collected more easily under the missing patches view or the detailed view. And the next step over here is to choose the applications which you wish to deploy. So if you wish to deploy patches only to a specific application, you can very well choose those information over here, which is also possible. And you'll also find other important things like what type of updates you wish to deploy, whether a security update or a non-security update, or only feature packs should be tested in my pilot environment. You can choose all those information. And the same thing applies even to the third-party application. So you can very well choose the updates you wish to manage. And based on this, the pilot environment will get the patches. But based on Microsoft's suggestion, I would recommend you to deploy all the required patches for your test environment, which will help you to identify the patches, as well as in future, if you have any requirement of deploying any new patch, by that time, you don't need to deploy the patch and test it, and in an urgent way, you don't need to deploy those patches to the production environment. Instead of that, you can very well test those patches in the pilot group at the initial stage itself, and it's going to be more easy for you in future. So here comes the deployment policy. Deployment policy is one of the important part, where here is where you're going to choose by when the patches should get deployed to the environment. We're going to see more information about the deployment policy at the end of the session. And here comes the notification settings. So once the patches are successfully deployed to the test environment, you'll get a notification to the email addresses which you have updated here. You can add multiple email addresses updated here. Based on this, report will be shared. Any patches which are getting declined or approved or failed, all these information will be sent as a detailed email to your email address. As I've told you earlier, we have made a lot of automation when it comes to Desktop Central. Approval mode for tested patches. So even the test and approve feature we have automated. So once a patch is successfully installed in your pilot environment, you can choose by when the patches should be approved to the production environment. So here you can put up like 2 days of time. So after 2 days, the patches which are successfully installed in your test environment will be approved to the production environment. So after this, you don't need to make any changes, where once you create a task, automatically the patches will be deployed and it will be approved to the production environment. So now we have created the test and approve feature. So the next step is to identify what exactly happened to the task which we have created. So I'm going to click on non-production environment. So here it gives you a detailed information about the task, what I've created. It gives you what is the deployment policy, when it was created, what type of severity I've chosen. All these information will be available here. So based on this, the patches should be pushed to the environment. If you wish to know what are all the patches involved in this test environment, you can find those details over here. We have also provided an option to manually approve the patches. If you're not comfortable in approving the patches automatic way, you can very well use the manual option to approve it. So you can just choose the patches here and you can approve it. In this patch view, you can find a detailed information why the patch was not installed, what is the issue. If there's going to be a failure, we'll also update those remarks here. And the system view gives an information how many machines are involved when it comes to this test and approve, how many machines were there in this test environment. Those details can be found here. As you can see, most of the patches were not deployed to this environment. And I'm sure you guys should have that idea why it was not deployed. As you can see, these machines are not reaching the server for a very long time. And that's the reason machines cannot be scanned and the missing patches cannot be identified, and the patches were missing for a very long time. So whenever you experience these type of issues, I would request you to kindly check these information and then reach support, so where it will be more easy to fix the problem at the initial stage itself. So based on my objective, I've tested the patches in my pilot environment, and I should deploy the patches to the production environment now. So I'm going to give you more information on how the Automate Patch Deployment task works. I'm going to show you the architecture of Automate Patch Deployment. For that, I'm going to take you back to the presentation. So here comes the first part when it comes to Automate Patch Deployment, Patch DB Sync and scanning process. As you can see, once you put up a schedule under patch database settings, based on that, your desktop central server will reach the central patch repository on a daily basis. You don't need to do this manually. It will happen on an automated way. So once the synchronization is done, by the next 90 minutes, any machine which is reaching the server, I believe you guys are aware of the 90 minutes refresh policy, which we have completed. So by the 90 minutes, all the client machines one by one will reach the server, and it will pick up the task, the scan task. It will run the scan on those client machines, and it will post the data back to the server. So this entire process is automated, where it does not require any human intervention. And once the scanning process is done, you'll be able to identify the missing patch details. And if you've created an Automate Patch Deployment task, based on the Automate Patch Deployment task, the patches will be downloaded automatically from the vendor side. As you can see, the entire process is automated here, right from sync, scan, download, and based on the deployment policy, even the deployment will happen automatically on the client machine. If you've set up an option to deploy patches only on weekends, based on the policy, the patches will be pushed during the weekends. And during the deployment, a detailed report will be shared to your email address. The entire process has been streamlined, and it's a more easy way to create the Automate Patch Deployment task. I'll also show you how to create an Automate Patch Deployment task, and we'll see what are all the information or what are all the benefits of using Automate Patch Deployment. So under Patch Management, Deployment, you'll find an option called Automate Patch Deployment. So here you'll find options for all three operating systems. You can choose one based on your requirement. So I've chosen the Windows operating system here. So the first one is the Microsoft Update. As you've seen earlier in the test and approve, you can choose the updates which you wish to manage. If you want only the security updates or service pack, roll-up, feature packs, you can choose those information. As I've told you earlier at the initial slides, that you can manage feature packs using Desktop Central. You can even automate the deployment when it comes to feature packs. And if you wish to deploy the patches to a specific application, you can also choose those application over here, where the deployment will happen only to that specific application. And the same thing applies to the third-party updates. Here comes the antivirus definition updates. As of now, in Desktop Central, we provide support for McAfee antivirus and then Microsoft Forefront endpoint. And we are also working on Windows Defender updates, and it should be released within March 2019. Another important thing here is deployment policy. We're going to see more information about the deployment policy in another 5 minutes. So you can choose the policy over here. Based on the policy, patches will be pushed to the client environment. So if you have any questions till now, please reach the chat team to get answers. Define target. So here is the important part. We're going to choose to which set of machines the patches should get deployed. As we've seen, the custom group which we have created, you can also choose that custom group and you can deploy the patches. I'm going to deploy patches to New York and San Francisco based on my requirement. I can also put up a filter here. If I've already created multiple groups in my domain, or I've created a site or an OU in my domain, I can also choose that, and whatever machines in that specific group can be added here automatically, and you can push patches to those machines. Or if you're more comfortable in the custom group which you've created, you can also choose that custom group you've created and you can deploy the patches. So once you create a custom group, it's going to be more useful for you in all the tabs when it comes to Desktop Central. You can also deploy patches based on the operating system, IP range, and IP address. All those things can be chosen here. And one of the great things here is a live tracking, a live report. So what is exactly happening when it comes to the deployment? Whether the deployment is successful or the deployment is not happening, whether there's an issue in the deployment or the deployment is successful, patches have been deployed successfully, or any issues in download, all those things can be sent as a detailed report to your email address. You can add multiple email addresses over here, and you can even choose the format. As you can see, the entire process is automated when it comes to the automated patch deployment. So you might wonder what will happen if a machine is actually turned off during the deployment time. So the machine will wait. The machine, whenever the machine comes up online, if it falls under the deployment policy, it will still go ahead, reach the server, it will notify the server to download the patches, and it will get deployed to the client machine. If the machine is not up and running till the deployment policy, it will only get the patches by the next deployment policy which is available. Hope you guys have a clear picture. You had a clear picture on how automated patch deployment works. So let's see what happened to the task which we have created when it comes to the automated patch deployment. So deployment for New York site. Under summary, you can find details about the task which we have created. What's the policy, what happened to the task, whether it has been successful or is there any failure. All those information will be listed here. As you can see, I'm going to click on this system view. It gives me an information. This specific machine has a patch, and the last contact time was Jan 30th by today. It gives you a detailed information, remarks, and it gives you failed patches. If you wish to know what is that failed patch, you can click on that. It even gives you an information. Patch stored location is not available to download the patch from the server. Whenever there's going to be any type of issues, like recently I've made some changes to this webinar machine where I've made changes to the store location. Because of that, I'm getting this error message, so I should definitely work on that. So the same way, whenever there's going to be any error, you'll find those error messages over here under remarks. So based on this, you can troubleshoot and you can fix the issue. Getting back to the automated patch deployment task. So here you'll find different views, a patch view, system view, what happened to the patches, how many patches have been added to the task. All those information will be available over here. Based on this, you'll have a clear picture how many patches have been deployed and what's the status of it. All those information will be available. If there's going to be any issues in downloading the patch, those details will be updated here. You can find the error messages as we've seen earlier. You can just click on this. It tells you that the desktop central server does not have access to the specific site, and that's the reason the download did not happen properly. So in this case, we would recommend our customers to contact the administrator, the network administrator, and unblock these URLs from firewall so where the server can reach and download the patches to manage it. And if you wish to make any changes to the task you've created, you can very well use the modify option and you can edit the task. If you wish to make changes or if you just wish to suspend the task, even that is possible using up this option. Another important thing, most of the time, our customers will try to clone the task which they have created with or without a target. So using this option, you can very well create with or without target. You can clone this entire task and it can be managed with same policies, same configuration. Everything can be chosen based on your requirement. So based on my objective, we have scanned, we have identified the missing patches, tested those patches, deployed those patches to the production environment. So the entire process is done now. I'm going to take you back to the presentation to give you more information about the deployment policy, my last objective. So as far as like what we've completed, I believe you guys should have a clear knowledge on how the entire patch process works, and you should be able to understand the entire automation process too. So my last objective here is deployment during non-office hours. That's my last objective, where I can deploy patches during 6 to 9 p.m. That's my requirement, and wake up and deploy, like turn on machines which are off and do a force reboot for the workstations and not for the servers. Let's see how to achieve this using the deployment policy which we have. And I would like to let you know that we have made a lot of changes when it comes to the deployment policy. And the build which I'm in is 10.0.353, so you might wonder why you're not seeing this option in your current build. As you can find, in the deployment policy, here is where you're going to put a time frame by when the patches should get deployed. And you might wonder, what is this preferred week split, regular split, and based on Patch Tuesday. When it comes to Desktop Central, we have an entire team who is working for customers' requirement. So whenever we receive a feature request, we analyze those information in our environment and we check what's the major need for that specific feature, and we work on it and we deliver that feature to our customers. So we got this feature request from many customers. They wish to deploy patches based on the Patch Tuesday. So that's the reason we have got this option over here. So the regular split is nothing but the current deployment policy which you're using. If you wish to deploy it in the same way, you can choose first, second, third week, and you can choose the days, and you can deploy the patches based on the selection. And if you're more concerned about Patch Tuesday releases, so I want to deploy patches only based on Patch Tuesday, then you can very well choose this option. As you can see, there's the first week of Patch Tuesday, and when a patch is getting released by the second week, like second Tuesday of every month will be considered as a Patch Tuesday week. So there's a Patch Tuesday week, and first week, second week, third week, and the remaining one is the fourth week. So based on this, you can very well choose the deployment, and based on this selection, the patches will be pushed to the environment machine. And you can also put up a time frame here, what should exactly, like by which time the deployment should happen. Those information can be selected. And during non-office hours, most of the users will turn off the machine. In that situation, the deployment will not happen. And to avoid this and to overcome the situation, you can very well use the Wake on LAN feature. Using this feature, you can very well turn on the machine and you can deploy the patches, which will help you with more success rate. Notifying the users about deployment. Most of the users wish their clients or the technicians to get notified about the deployment. So you can configure your own personal message here and you can notify the users with a basic timer. Or if you're more concerned that the user might get disturbed with the deployment, it can very well provide them access to skip the deployment. So using this part, user will get a notification with a postpone option. I'll also show you how that exactly looks like. So the user can very well go ahead and postpone the deployment, and you can also do a forced deployment after 2 or 3 days. So for 2 days continuously, user will be getting a notification, so where they can postpone it, and after 2 days of time, the patches will get deployed automatically. And the last part, which is the reboot policy, one of the important part when it comes to most of the patching solutions. So most of the patches requires a reboot after installation. If a reboot is not done, those patches will not take effective on those machines. For that, the machines should be rebooted. You can very well schedule your reboot, and we are also working on the reboot policy. So where we're going to add more information and more features to the reboot policy in another 1 or 2 months. So we're going to put up a date or a time frame by when the deployment should happen and when the reboot should happen. So those information will be added to the reboot policy. And you can also provide access to users to skip the reboot, which is also an easier way to manage. So you can very well go ahead and use up this option, and you can provide access to users to postpone the reboot, which can also be done. And you can also do a forced reboot after 2 days. So I'm going to take you back to the presentation to show how the notification looks like. So here you can find this is how the notification is going to pop up in user screen, where they can go ahead and choose 1 hour, 2 hours, or 4 hours, and it can be like postponed to the environment. Based on the environment, you can do it. And it also find the first reboot, a notification will pop up. User will get an option to restart, or they can wait for 4 or 5 minutes, and the restart will happen automatically. Scenarios and solutions. So if you guys have any questions till now, please use the chat option to chat with our expert team. I experienced serious difficulties deploying Java 6 and 7 updates to my machine. Will Desktop Central help me to tackle this issue? One of the interesting scenario which we came across recently, like most of the customers are experiencing issues when it comes to Java 6 and 7 patches, and most certain vendors, they don't allow normal or regular users to download the patches from them. Only a registered user can download the patch. And even when you download a patch manually, you need to drop that patch in the store, you need to rename it, and then you need to push those patches to the environment. It's going to be a tough job for an administrator. To overcome this, we have got an option in Desktop Central, which is upload patches. So here under patches, downloaded patches, we have provided you an option called upload patches. So here, whatever patches we have supported when it comes to this, like all patches which are supported when it comes to this upload option. Imagine Java 6 and 7 patches you have downloaded from the environment. So you don't need to rename it. You don't need to make any changes to that language. You can just click on this upload. You can browse that file, and you can very well add it. It's not mandatory that it should be done only from a server machine. Anywhere you can access the UI, you can just download the patch to that specific machine, and you can click on upload, and you can add it to the store. And it's very simple. You can just click on install patch from here, and you can push that patch to the environment. So in this way, you can easily manage the patches which cannot be downloaded in the server. In my organization, they wish to deploy patches based on Patch Tuesday. How can we accomplish using Desktop Central? As we've seen this earlier, under the deployment policy, you find this option to choose deployment based on Patch Tuesday. So based on this, the patches will be pushed to the environment. It is really hard to manually deploy feature pack to all the client machines. How to automate the feature pack deployment using Desktop Central? So when it comes to Desktop Central, Previously, we used to have an option where customers should download the ISO file, and once the ISO file is downloaded, you need to rename that ISO file and you need to drop it in the store. Sometimes customer might be managing multiple languages in a specific operating system. So when you choose only English, then the download is going to be a problem where the download won't happen. Again, we need to give a query to identify what are all the languages being used. It's a very long process. So our development team have worked a lot to get an automated way to push these patches to the environment. So what we've exactly done here is the same way. You just need to go to the patches view, choose the feature pack which you wish to deploy, and just click on install patch. This will automatically push the patches to the client machine. Or you don't want to go with the manual option, you still want to get more automated, just come to the deployment, automate patch deployment, automate task. Here you can choose the feature pack update and it will be automatically deployed. No need to download anything. Everything can be done automated through this option. How can I install agents to SUSE machines? One of the important part is Linux agent installation, where most of the customers get confused how to install agents to SUSE. As you can see, under scope of management computers, you'll find an option to download the agent manually where you can find the Linux agent here. But before you can see this information, you need to do a basic setting, which is under the agent settings. You need to add the credentials here. So you need to add the Linux credentials and then only the details will be updated there, or else you cannot find any Linux agent download. If your Linux machines are part of a domain, you don't need to install the agents manually. You can even push those agents from the console, which is also possible. I have some legacy application for a business that only run an older Java version. How can I disable Java updates? A very simple way. We have like two ways available. One is a selective exclusion, a permanent exclusion. Selective exclusion is nothing but while creating a task, you can very well choose an option what type of application you wish to deploy. Automate task, I can choose critical, and I can choose a specific application. So only patches for this specific application will get deployed. Another one is decline patch. So here under patches, I'll find an option called decline. I can choose this option and I can decline the patches. So where a patch, once it is declined, it will not be shown under the missing patches view. And you'll also find options to filter it based on the patch ID, bulletin ID, and KB number. All those information will be available here. Our business application misbehave occasionally, and I suspect that recent patch deployment could be the cause. What should I do? So here is where comes the test and approve feature. So before deploying a patch to the production environment, please do test the patch and then deploy the patch to the production environment. In case if you're experiencing issues even after deploying the patch to the production environment, we have provided you an option to do a rollback. So under patch management, patches, install patches view, you'll find the patch details here. You can choose it and you can uninstall the patch. While deploying the patches, I came across below errors on multiple clients. How to get this fixed? Office update error, unknown error code. Most of these error messages used to happen when there is an issue with that actual patch or might be an environmental issue. Let's go with the Office update error here. If the previous Office application or the previous version of Office was not properly installed and when the application got crashed or whenever there is an issue with that application, by that time, you will experience this Office update error. For these types of errors, we'll notify you through a knowledge base. So please go through that knowledge base and follow the steps. If you cannot fix the issue, please do reach support. We'll help you out with that. So these are the endpoint management solutions where you can make use of it. As you can see, Desktop Central, OS Deployer, Desktop Central MSP, Patch Manager Plus Cloud and Patch Manager Plus On-Prem version. If your major requirement is to manage only patches, you can very well go with Patch Manager Plus and Patch Manager Plus Cloud, which has more advanced and easy way to manage your environment when it comes to patching. And you also find the Patch Connect Plus product if you manage SCCM and if you wish to deploy patches like third-party patches to your environment, you can very well make use of Patch Connect Plus. To know more information about all ManageEngine products, like all endpoint management solution, you can very well access the below mentioned website. Questions. What is the average turnaround for patches to be updated by Desktop Central? So when it comes to this part, whenever it comes to a security patch, from the release time, we'll start supporting that patch. Like from 6 hours, we'll start supporting that patch, and 24 hours for a non-security patch. How much disk space does a distribution server need to have to catch patches? It depends on the operating system you're managing in that specific environment. Imagine you have 50 machines, and out of the 50 machines, 5 Windows 7 machines, 5 Windows 10, 5 Windows 8, and server machines, and multiple operating systems are combined. So in that situation, different types of patches needs to be downloaded from the server to the distribution server. So in this case, it requires more space. If you have all the operating system, all the machines under a single operating system, then it's going to consume a less space. I could see the difference in patches discovered by Desktop Central against WSUS or Windows Update. Why? So this is one of the major questions which we use to handle on a daily basis. I'd like to give a detailed information on how this works. Whenever it comes to WSUS, they normally don't show the superseded patches. I'm sorry, they do show the superseded patches, where in Desktop Central, we don't show the superseded patches. So that might be the case where they might have like 20 missing patches, and Desktop Central, you'll find only 10 missing patches. And sometimes they show patches which are not supported by us, like driver updates. We are working on driver updates part, and it should be released within March 2019. So in these scenarios, you might experience a discrepancy when it comes to the patching. Please do share the screenshot whenever you experience these type of issues, where we can check and help you accordingly. How failed patches are handled in test and approve. You might have this question. Whenever it comes to a test and approve, how it exactly works. So as I've told you earlier, patches will be first tested in your test environment, and then it will be pushed to the production environment. What will happen if a patch is getting failed? A single patch which is getting failed on 5 machines, but it got successful, but it got been successfully installed in a single machine. In this case, the patch will be still moved to the production environment. It will be approved automatically, or you can also manually approve it. Based on Desktop Central, we'll only consider if the patches are successfully getting installed or not. Even if one machine gets the patches properly and if it's getting installed successfully, then it will be considered as a proper patch. Sometimes you might experience a problem after installation. In this case, we have provided you an option to decline that specific patch, where the user who's managing the test machine can very well decline that patch. Or if you cannot identify which patch caused the issue, please do reach support. We'll help you with that. Once you decline that patch, it will not be pushed to the production environment. And when it comes to the production environment, like automate patch deployment, using automate patch deployment, you can only deploy patches which are approved. Not approved patches cannot be deployed using automate patch deployment. I completely rely on Desktop Central for patch management of both operating system and third-party application. Is that a way to disable automated update using Desktop Central, like Adobe and Java? Yes, it is possible. Under Disable Automated Updates, we have provided you an option where you can very well go ahead and disable the automated updates of these applications. We have also provided a patch to actually deploy it on the client machine in order to disable the Windows automated updates. So here comes the end of the training program, the patch management training program. Hope you all had a great informative session. And you can very well rate this on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. And you can also very well share your feedback if we need to improve on presentation or on the content which we handle. And you can also spread the word in Facebook, Twitter, Google, or LinkedIn. And the next training schedule will be on software deployment, which is going to happen on Feb 6th. And I just want to give you a brief note on the EMS World Tour, which you're going to do by February. So this is the schedule for the EMS World Tour. As you can all find the details, let me put up the screen here, this template where it will be available for you, so you can find the details of the event and when it's going to happen and which location. You can find those details. I would recommend you to participate in these seminars to gain more knowledge on how Desktop Central works. And to register for this, you can very well reach our support team where they'll share the link for this registration. And if you need a personalized Desktop Central or Patch Manager Plus or Patch Connect Plus demo, please do inform our chat technician where they'll take your request and they'll schedule a demo for you. Thank you so much for your time and patience. You guys have a wonderful day.